YouTube, welcome to another banger. Today we're going over the top team in the SEC. We're going to break it down by the numbers. As you know, the SEC race is really heating up right now, and we're going to break down statistically which team is best in the SEC right now because you got Texas A&M. They are undefeated in their conference right now. You got Georgia. They're currently 9-1 with one conference loss, if I'm not mistaken. You got Ole Miss. They're 6-1 in the conference, and you got Alabama at 6-1 within the conference. So these last 2 weeks of college football is going to be really interesting for the SEC because you'll really get an idea of a playoff picture. We got some scenarios for you guys, and we're going to discuss what happens in each one of those scenarios. So let's start breaking down Georgia. As I said earlier, Georgia is currently 9-1 in the SEC. There is a three-way tie almost for second place right now, with each Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama all having one loss in the conference. In Georgia is a pretty good team. They have a middle of the pack offense right now. They also have a middle of the pack defense. Their defense struggles against high octane teams, right? Ole Miss and Tennessee both scored nearly 40 points on Georgia. When Georgia was playing Ole Miss would put points on the board in their first 5 drives. So Georgia does struggle on defense, but the way Gunnar Stockton plays is absolutely insane, right? In those two games against Tennessee and Ole Miss, Gunnar Stockton would have nearly an 80% completion rate, 600 yards, 2 rushing TDs, and 6 passing TDs. Georgia does have a slight edge compared to these other teams in the run game. They currently are 4th in rushing yards per game. Nate Frazier, he's the one carrying that rush game for Georgia right now. He's got 34% of their total yards, but only has 3 TDs, right? So he's definitely a combo guard. Between the mix of his power and his speed, he's able to get the job done. He's averaging about 5 yards a carry. So Georgia can lean on Nate Frazier pretty heavily and pretty much get the job done compared to the Alabama team whose rushing offense is just right. So looking at the playoff picture, it will be key for Georgia to control the tempo to make sure that they win the time of possession for each game to be successful, right? Georgia is not going to put up a huge amount of points, right? But if they need to, they have the potential to, but I don't see them scoring 40 each game each week for the college playoffs. So Georgia's defense, they got to make sure they get 2 or 3 stops, maybe a turnover on down, and they will be able to secure that win, right? We know Gunnar Stockton can get it done on his legs or through the passing. So if Georgia is able to string up a couple different stops in the playoffs, they will definitely be able to make some moves within that playoff atmosphere. Next, you got Alabama. Alabama, I want to say, has one of the best pocket passers in the SEC right now in Ty Simpson. Alabama is in the top 3 for passing yards per game. What makes Alabama special this year are their stars on defense, though, right? Their defense is second in the SEC in points allowed per game. They're definitely locking down on defense. They are first in pass defense. Not only this, but prior to last game, they led the SEC in takeaways, right? They have a lot of playmakers. They can force fumbles. They can get interceptions. Alabama is very good at making the offense turn the ball over, right? That makes Alabama's defense really makes up for their shortcomings in the run game. Alabama is currently last in the run game for the SEC right now. But when you have Ty Simpson at the quarterback, you always have a chance to win the game. In the 4-week stretch against ranked SEC opponents, the Alabama defense only gave up 125 yards. That was below 4 yards a carry against those ranked SEC opponents. I believe they played Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, and they played one more team, if I'm not mistaken, Ole Miss, if I'm not mistaken. Ty Simpson showed up in a big way, but in all of those games, he wins. All of the games mentioned above, no opponent scored more than 24 points. The Alabama defense produced 5 turnovers in that stretch against the most explosive offense in the SEC. In Tennessee, Alabama held them to only 20 points when their average points per game is 43. So let's look at those stats for Ty Simpson in those games. Ty Simpson was stellar. he averaged at least 200 yards for every single one of those games. He was really getting the job done and really showing why he's a great fit as a pocket passer for the Crimson Tide. But as you can see in those in the last game against Oklahoma, if you can get Ty Simpson kind of off his game, if you can make him uncomfortable a little bit, he is definitely known for turning the ball over. They forced 3 turnovers in that Oklahoma game, and it would have been 4, but it was called, one of the interceptions was called back because of a penalty. So Oklahoma was really getting after the quarterback. I was listening to a podcast and they said that Alabama on offense, when Ty Simpson is pressured, he has fumbled the ball 5 times and thrown 2 interceptions. So under pressure, Ty Simpson does not do well. His line is very good, but you have to keep making sure that you put pressure on him and try to get after him to make him feel uncomfortable, and those forced turnovers will come about. All that praise I gave for Alabama's defense, I have to give now to the Oklahoma defense and double down on it. They are first in the SEC in rushing yards allowed per game. They have the #1 defense for rushing in the SEC. They are first in points allowed per game and second in total yards per game. So that Oklahoma defense really shows out. They really step up for that coach who I was doing a little bit of research on, and he is absolutely insane. He is absolutely insane. The coach of Oklahoma, he was a defensive coordinator for a while. He was an NFL coach for a while. He definitely, Brett Venables, he went to, I want to say Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, and he was a linebacker. So he's a defensive-minded coach. He definitely keeps that Oklahoma defense steady. They pin their ears back. They get after the quarterback. They force bad plays. And that Oklahoma defense continues to carry them throughout each and every single week. They have 2 losses right now, one to Texas and one to Ole Miss. Both those losses coming from a struggling offense. Right, that defense shows up every single time. They have a complete shutout, and they held 2 teams to 3 points. So Oklahoma's defense shows up in a big way. In their 2 losses, they held the QB to below 50% completion percentage and less than 2 yards per carry. So it's safe to say their defense is absolutely insane. And with just a little bit of offense from John Mateer, they can get the job done each and every single week, right? John Mateer, all he has to do is manage the game. If John Mateer is able to manage the game, they're able to make a deep run into the playoffs if they were to make it. They're currently ranked 8th right now with the win over Alabama, so they have a high chance to make a deep run into the playoffs. And if I'm not mistaken, you currently have 5 teams currently in the SEC who are going to the playoffs right now. You got Texas A&M, you have Georgia, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Alabama. So it's going to be an SEC run playoff. I don't see any of them making a deep run outside of Georgia and Alabama. Yes, Oklahoma's defense is top tier, but if that defense makes 1 or 2 mistakes, Ohio State, Indiana, they're going to take advantage of that, right? If Indiana and Ohio State are able to put 24 to 25 points on the board, I don't see Oklahoma being able to throw their way back into that game. Here's a little bonus question here from all my SEC fans. Do you know who has the 2 best do you know the 2 best rushing teams in the SEC right now? Comment your answer. Go ahead, pause the video. Comment your answer. Let me know what you think. If you already commented, it is going to be Missouri and Arkansas. Missouri averages 241 yards per game right now at the #1 spot, and Arkansas averages 205 rush yards per game at #2. So those are 2 pretty good rushing offenses. Yes, they're not high in the SEC, but their run game is very efficient, and they have figured that out, right? Next, we're gonna go into Ole Miss. Ole Miss this year, I feel like is the most complete offense of all the SEC teams. Ole Miss is first in total yards, first in total rushing yards, second in rushing TDs, and second in total points. At 10-1, they are third in the SEC. And looking at that playoff picture, the SEC championship it's a big question behind it, right? It's like, does the 1 and 2 seed of the SEC want to play that extra game, right? Do you want that week off, right? If I'm Georgia and I'm at the number 4 spot and I get to rest my guys for that SEC championship, are they going to do that, right? Yes, you have a lot of pride in the SEC, but at the end of the day, aren't you competing for a national title, right? Do you want to play in the SEC championship game? Georgia could go back to back, but do you feel like a national title is more important than that SEC championship game? And we'll get into what the SEC championship game looks like later on into the video. But kind of circling back to that Ole Miss's quarterback Trinidad Chambers is third in passing yards right now in the SEC, while their running back Keywan Lacey is currently second in rushing yards per game right now. They average nearly 40 points a game between the two of them. Even though they have an explosive offense, their defense tends to struggle sometimes. Their defense is middle of the pack as well. They are between the 5th and 6th spots in most defensive categories. In their only loss this year to Georgia, they could not get a stop, right? The defensive numbers are slightly skewed due to the competition that they played, but Georgia really had their number. Georgia was able to put up almost 40 points on that Ole Miss team. And yes, Ole Miss scored 5 straight touchdowns during those 5 first drives, but Georgia really just gave them a number right now against Ole Miss. Yeah, Georgia was able to put up 43 points against Ole Miss. Gunnar Stockton, 289 yards, 26 for 31, 4 touchdowns, and I believe he had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. So Ole Miss did not have an answer for that Gunnar Stockton play, and as you see, they would go on and win the game. Yeah, Gunnar Stockton, 4 touchdowns, 4 passing touchdowns. He did not have any running touchdowns. Looked like he had 1 rushing touchdown. So also had 60 yards on 10 carries, so he was averaging 6 yards per carry. So Ole Miss struggled against against that mobile quarterback. If Ole Miss is able to, Ole Miss is along the same lines with Georgia, right? If Ole Miss is able to string together 1 or 2 stops against a high-powered offense, they have the chance to kind of run up the score, put the game out of reach, and force the opponent to pass the ball for the rest of the game. And then last but not least here, we're going to get into that Texas A&M. We're going to get into Texas A&M. And it's surprising. I did not think Texas A&M would be as good as they were this year. They are currently 10-0 and first in the SEC right now. Texas A&M, I feel, is the most balanced team in the SEC right now. Their one weakness, which we'll go over in a second here, is going to be what kills them the most. They have pure playmakers across all sides of the offense, right? They have Marcel Reed. He is 4th in passing yards and 3rd. He is 4th in passing yards. They have 2 receivers right now who are 3rd and 4th for receiving yards in the SEC. Lastly, they also have the leading sack leader for the SEC right now. So they have pure playmakers across the board. They have a lot of those 1, 2, 3, 4 spots across the board with quarterback, receiver, and the sack leader. And yes, they have a great team, but looking towards the playoffs, A&M is going to struggle because they're not able to get the job done on 3rd downs, right? They currently sit at 40% on 3rd down conversions, and other teams like Alabama sitting at 46%. Georgia sits at 48%. So if A&M was able to make the playoff, they would need to convert on 3rd down, right? Because if you're getting your offense off the field on a 3 and out, and you are giving the ball to an Ohio State, you're giving the ball to a Georgia team, which you won't have answers for, they will punish you for going 3 and out, not converting on 3rd downs, and giving them a short field, right? So you want to make sure that you really hone in on that play calling. You want to make sure that you hone in on ensuring your team is put in the best situation to convert on 3rd downs, right? Maybe running the ball early on that 1st down, making the 3rd down more manageable. That way it opens the playbook across the board. So we're going to go over the SEC title game and kind of what it looks like right now. So the current rankings, you got Texas A&M right now. You got at number 1, 3-way tie between Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama, who all have 1 conference loss. So for each team to make it to the SEC playoff, we're gonna go over it right now. Georgia is 7-1 with 3 ranked wins. Their losses to Alabama. for Georgia to make it to that SEC title game, Auburn would have to beat Alabama, and if Auburn beats Alabama, that would put them at the number 2 spot because Georgia has the head-to-head victory over Ole Miss right now. Ole Miss is 6-1 in the conference with 2 ranked SEC wins over number 4 LSU and number 13 Alabama. As I said previously, their loss is to Georgia. Their last game of the season is against Mississippi State. For Ole Miss to make it to the SEC title game, they would need to win the Mississippi State game. Auburn would have to beat Alabama, and Texas would have to beat A&M. So a lot of stuff has to go right for Ole Miss to make it to that playoff game. Alabama, they're currently 6-1 in the conference with 4 ranked wins in the SEC. Their ranked wins are against number 5 Georgia, number 16 Vanderbilt, number 14 Missouri, and number 11 Tennessee. Their only loss in the SEC conference was last week to that Oklahoma team. Alabama plays Auburn in 2 weeks here. So for Alabama to make it to the SEC playoff picture, they would need to beat Auburn at the last game of the season, or one or two things need to happen. Texas needs to beat A&M, or Mississippi State has to beat Ole Miss, right? So a lot of interesting things going on here. I was doing some research, watching some different videos, going over, well, what if every team kind of wins out for the rest of the season, right? Then it goes based off of the win percentage of the other teams that they play within the SEC conference, right? Alabama's opponent's win percentage right now is currently sitting at 44% as of 2 days ago. Georgia's win percentage against other teams in the SEC right now was sitting at 41%, and then Ole Miss's win percentage against other SEC games was sitting at 38%. So that all could change based on the last 2 games of the season if some of those teams that were beat in the SEC kind of went out for the rest of the year. So those win percentages are up to question. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of group together this SEC playoff picture. I'm definitely going to be tapped in to the remainder of the schedule. This Texas game is going to have huge implications. The Alabama-Auburn game is going to have huge implications. That Ole Miss against Mississippi State game is going to have huge implications. So, and if I'm not mistaken, Ole Miss plays Missouri this weekend as well. So it's going to, I love SEC football. The more I get into it, the more I kind of understand the hype and understand the mantra behind the SEC, right? You got the Nick Saban tree all throughout SEC coaches. You got Lane Kiffin, you got Kellen DeBoer, you got, Kirby Smart, you have Brian Lewis. You have all these different coaches who are in the SEC who have crazy legacies, who are trying to leave their mark against all of these teams, right? So definitely make sure you're tapped into that Oklahoma-Missouri game, and make sure that you keep an eye on that Georgia-Charlotte game. Yes, Georgia is a huge favorite in that game, but as you know, teams who are huge favorites tend to drop the ball sometimes if they're not truly locked in. And then this isn't with the SEC, but just take a look at this Oregon USC game. This game has huge playoff implications as well. USC Trojans sitting at 8-2. They are 3rd in the Big Ten. They go against Oregon this Saturday, who is currently 9-1. So they're tied for that Big Ten spot. Yes, Ohio State and Indiana are both the powerhouses of the Big Ten, but make sure you tap into that game. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Harris Room Sports. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you comment on the video. Let me know what you guys want to see. Let me know what you guys want to go over. I'm definitely going to do some coaching trees of the SEC. I'm going to do some history of SEC football. And then once basketball heats up, I'm going to be more into basketball as well. So if you enjoy sports, if you enjoy the coverage of all these different SEC games, all the different coverages of the NBA games, we're going to be doing Emirates Cup recap. We're going to be doing a Cavs reaction to each and every single one of those games. So make sure you guys tap into the stream. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you in the next one.